Welcome into the Sportsmemo college basketball betting podcast with our college basketball expert, Mr. Brent Crow. Brent, welcome into the pod. How are you?
Hey, Drew, doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. You basketball, Brent, last year, 72-48. That's 60%, up 25 units. This year, you've been good, but last night off of a loss, and frustrating at times, or are you happy with the season so far? What's on your overall mind betting college basketball this season?
Today I bet Virginia under, and by the time that I could get it up, it was, the line had moved so much. It opened 134 down to 126. So, but, it's been choppy, and I hadn't been on a big winning streak yet. But that's, it seems like in college basketball, in any sport, you're not, from day one through the end of the season, you don't win every, it's not a steady flow of winners. If you have one of those years, I did last year. I just won every month. But a lot of times it seems like, you have streaks where you really, really win, and then the rest of the time you split out, and that's been the case. We've split out for the most part all year, and I'm looking for that winning streak that I know is going to happen. It does every year. And, there are – I will say in college basketball this year, it does seem that there has been some sharper, lines and line moves that I wasn't accustomed to seeing the last few years. So, the market evolves. Everybody gets better usually. And what I wind up having to do is play, really do a lot more research and not those obvious, the teams that are so obvious. It seems like the obvious ones, you're not getting as many opportunities with those teams as in the past. Used to, if there was a team that was really out of character, you might get 4 or 5 games before everybody realized. It seems like it's about 2 games now. So, it's an evolving business, and it's not beatable, which it certainly is. But I think by the end of the year, I will be very pleased as always.
Yeah, absolutely, Brent. And you say beatable, college basketball, I put up there as the most beatable, if not the most, one of the most. It's just a lot on the odds makers, a lot of games, a lot of teams, a lot of information for people to know. So if you can buckle down, do your work, which you have, Brent, you can find some winners. And you do have a 4% CBB best bet up and available at sportsmemo.com. So check that out, guys, as you're listening to the podcast. We're going to break down some games here, maybe get Brent's best free pick for the podcast as well at the end. And the rest of his college basketball season is $795 on Sportsmemo. But if you use the coupon code CBB500, you will get his college basketball rest of season for just $499. That's CBB500 at checkout for Brent Crow or anybody's college basketball rest of season. Great time to be betting college basketball. And I'm excited to bet it, Brent. I'm also excited to talk to you about tonight's card. We got 7:01, 7:02, 7 p.m. Eastern tip, Auburn on the road, getting them out of that Auburn arena, which has been a hostile environment to say the least. They played well there. Going on the road here into an ACC environment. How much do you think that's factoring in here, Brent? We got War Eagle laying 1.5 on the road, 158 the total.
Well, Auburn, their home court is certainly a very strong one, and we saw them play Saturday against UAB in Birmingham. It was a neutral court, not UAB's home court, and Auburn struggled. They had to go to overtime against a UAB team that, they don't have any good wins this year. UAB, everybody that they've played that's been decent, they've lost to by multiple, 18 to Florida State, 18 to Memphis. Their best win comes against Mercer, and then they gave Auburn all they could handle in that one on Saturday with an overtime loss. So this is really, that was a kind of road game for Auburn. They drove a bus from Auburn to Birmingham. It wasn't, a real hostile environment, and it was, matter of fact,
probably more Auburn fans there.
Yeah, it definitely was. And then, so now you've got NC State on the road, and NC State is, it's not Cameron Indoor as far as the atmosphere there, but it's still a road game against a quality opponent, and NC State is a lot better than I thought they would be. They opened the season with a bunch of victories against Cupcakes, but they had a very tough loss to Wisconsin on the road in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. They really should have won the game, wound up losing by 4, and since then they've handled Vanderbilt and Penn State on neutral courts, and They've got some talent. I think it's a really good matchup of guards. You've got Braxton Beverly and Markel Johnson for NC State against Jared Harper and Auburn's shooting guard Bryce Brown. I mean, that is 4 quality guards there on the court, and both teams like to get up and down the court. They both pressure. They both like to play fast. They both shoot a lot of threes. NC State's hit 40% from 3 for the year. That's 10th in the country. Auburn, 37%. So what you would expect an up and down pace here, but your total is at 158.5. That's you got to be careful when totals get up around 160 with 2 really good teams. I mean, they do play some defense. It's not like they're not Loyola Marymount back in the day where they let people score where they can get the ball back. I mean, both of these teams are pretty solid defensively. Auburn has been really good defensively, as a matter of fact, and I think they force more turnovers than any team in the nation. They also block more shots than any team in the nation. So, I would actually, despite it's going to be a fast game, despite both teams being pretty efficient offensively, I would lean a little bit to under. And as far as picking the side goes, I'd definitely see how good Auburn is, but I wouldn't be surprised if NC State didn't sneak one out here today.
Yeah, it's a good matchup. Good team going on the road versus a quality opponent. Like you said, it's 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off, and you can watch it on ESPN2 tonight. Brent, looking at the card, we got about 50 games on the board, and then also, almost another 50 on the added board, so almost 100 games tonight. Do you find yourself betting more, maybe, volume and, amount on the games, kind of more confident on the bigger college basketball cards, or does it matter to you, if tonight was a 9-game or 10-game card?
It just, the more games there are, the more opportunities there are. Last night, I think I wound up bet 5 games and, a similar card. Tonight, I only found, I think, a couple games that I actually bet. So it just depends on how the makeup of the card is. I mean, like I said, you got more chances to have something that presents value with more games, though. Okay.
Well, let's talk another ACC-SEC matchup here. We got 7-0-9, 7-10. On the Sportsmemo odds screen, we got Virginia, the number 5 team in the nation, versus South Carolina. Looks like the Cavs laying 8, 8.5, or 9, depending where you're shopping. And this total, like you touched on before, huge under move, all the way down to 126.5 right now. How'd you look to bet the Cavs and Gamecocks tonight?
I bet Virginia under 132, so obviously, at 126, you don't have near the value on the under. I mean, Virginia, it doesn't matter who they play, they're not going to get in a fast game. They're going to be around 60 possessions about every game, no matter the opponent. South Carolina this year, you wouldn't expect it. Frank Martin, and they're playing up-tempo. I mean, they're 20th in the nation in adjusted tempo, and that is so out of character for Frank Martin teams. I mean, he is a guy that preaches defense, and I mean, it's not like he's ever been a slowdown guy, but he's never been this fast. And it's kind of funny because it's not like they have a lot of talent. I mean, it's they're only 4-5 on the year. Their best victory came against Coastal Carolina. So, it's not like he's got all these great athletes and he's getting up and down the court, taking advantage of it. I mean, when I watch them play, they're a little bit undisciplined, but I don't know what I guess there's a method for the madness with Frank Martin. He's not going to let them do what they want to do. They're definitely playing the way he wants to. He's got a young team. He's got several freshmen that are playing. And, I just look at this South Carolina team. What they've done, their best performance was their last one. They put up 78 points against Michigan on the road. And that was really surprising to me that they were able to score like they did against Michigan's. Michigan's defense has been so good. And South Carolina did it. They didn't hit a bunch of threes. They only hit 5 in the game and still put up 78 points. They were able to get a lot of easy buckets against Michigan. It was kind of, I don't know, maybe they just played above their head. The game before that, they played a Wyoming team that doesn't play much defense and only scored 64. So, I think they played their best game of the season. They still lost the game by 11 to Michigan. And, it's a tough one here against this Virginia team. Even though it's on South Carolina's home court, Virginia's going to force them to play in the half court. And I think that's that's a trouble spot for South Carolina. So, the problem is, everything is factored into the number. Virginia at 8.5 or 9. It sounds about right to me. And, I'm real curious to see how South Carolina plays against Virginia because, like I said, they've not been competitive against good teams until their last one against Michigan, and even then they still lose by 11 to the Wolverines. So I think Virginia probably wins this one somewhere around the number.
And Brent, they have the SEC Big 12 challenge, right?
Right.
Is tonight the SEC ACC challenge?
I believe it is. You've got 3 or 4. I don't think that obviously, I don't think every team that it participates, but I think it's maybe it's more informal than the
Big 12.
ACC Big 12 or whatever,
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it marketed or anything. This is the third game we're going to talk, and it's another ACC SEC matchup. We got Georgia Tech at Arkansas, 147.5. Looks like the Razorbacks laying 9 to the Yellow Jackets. How would you look to bet this one, Brent? This is at 9 p.m. tonight on the SEC Network.
Well, Georgia Tech is a slow team. They do not get up and down the court. They're not very good offensively. They can't shoot. They do play good defense. Josh Pastner has tried to instill defense into this program more than anything else. And you look at their numbers. They're not bad. 7th in the nation in effective field goal percentage allowed. They're 19th in defensive efficiency. They're in the top 35 in just about everything. All the metrics you look at defensively. So the problem is they can't score. They're coming off a home loss to Gardner-Webb. They put up just 53 points on the road against Tennessee. They hit 61 on the road against Northwestern. Their best offensive output against anybody that's halfway decent was a 73-point performance on the neutral court against St. John's. I think that was actually the MSG. But, like I said, it's been a struggle to score for Georgia Tech. If you watch them play, you see they just don't have a lot of weapons. The best volume shooter is the point guard Jose Alvarado, and he's at 26% from 3 for the season. And, it's going to take some more recruiting classes before this program is able to compete in the ACC. They were kind of it's been a long time since Georgia Tech's been any good, really. Arkansas, on the other hand, they've been scoring, but they hadn't played anybody good defensively. The best 2 teams they faced defensively was Texas to open the season. They only scored 71 points in overtime in that one. And then Indiana at home, they put up 73 on 76 possessions. And since then, they've basically played some cupcakes. It includes a loss to Western Kentucky at home. Arkansas's got talent. Gafford down low is an NBA prospect. They've got some freshmen that are decent, but this is not a really dynamic offensive team for Arkansas. They've been able to capitalize against bad teams getting out in transition, but in the half court, I've seen them struggle. And of course, Georgia Tech's going to try to play in the half court. And this was one that I was really on the fence on, and I may wind up in betting under. It's gone up from 145 at the open to 147.5 now. And that's almost to the range that I would play it under the total. I don't trust Arkansas to play half-court offense very efficiently, and I know Georgia Tech's going to try to make them do that. And then, like I said, Georgia Tech not very efficient offensively themselves.
And Brent, you bring up Georgia Tech not being good for a while. Being there in Atlanta, they got the new on-campus basketball arena. Recruiting should be pretty good there. Do you think they'll be able to turn it around? And why hasn't Georgia Tech been good, in your opinion?
Well, you go back. Brian Gregory was there for 5 years, and he had, 2 winning seasons. They were 16-15 and 21-15, and I don't think he recruited very well. You have to go back to Bobby Crimmins since they were really a national recruiting team. After Paul Hewitt had a couple of good years. at Georgia Tech, but for the most part, he struggled. And then, like I said, Brian Gregory never really gained any traction recruiting, and now Josh Pastner hasn't had a whole lot of success as well. So, the first and foremost, they got to recruit better. And, I think Pastner gives them a better opportunity than Gregory or Hewitt to do that. It's just, you got to hit on some guys that are, 4 stars or 3 stars that blossom. Because Georgia Tech, they're just not a team. If you're a 5-star and you're, a one and done guy, you're not going to Georgia Tech. So they've got to somehow, in the ACC, you're not going to compete if you don't recruit well. So, they have the facilities. Atlanta's, not a bad place. It's got some pizzazz and whatever that attracts recruits, but they've got to, and all it takes is just get a guy or two and get it started.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, especially nowadays, with the one and done. If you can just get a guy, maybe 2, all of a sudden you find yourself in the tournament, never know what can happen. What about Pastner? Is he okay? Does he have the, is he in trouble with the NCAA? I remember something in the off season. Is all okay with that at Georgia Tech?
Yeah, there was a big flap with one of his assistants and a lot of accusations. I don't think anything ever became of it, though. I think it was, some sour grapes more than anything else from I don't even think it was an assistant. I think it was like a helper.
Okay. Yeah.
But, AAU guy or whatever, there were some accusations that Pastner was dirty, and, he's kind of had that. But I don't think anything's ever stuck, so.
Well, let's move on in and out of the South here. We got 725-726 up next, 9 p.m. Eastern tip. This one on ESPN2 following the Auburn-NC State game. We got UCLA at Cincinnati, Brent. 134 now the total. Some heavy movement towards the under here. It's been bouncing around 134 to 137-ish. Looks like -8 the Cincinnati Bearcats are laying. How would you look to bet UCLA-Cincinnati?
Well, UCLA, like so many other teams, they have a 7-3 record, but their 3 losses are basically 3 of the 4 best teams they faced: Michigan State, North Carolina, and Belmont. Their only quality win came against Notre Dame. And if you look at UCLA, when they've played the Cupcakes, they've scored a lot of points. They've been up in the 80s and 90s and been efficient offensively, but against the top 4 teams that they've played, they've been inefficient. Against Michigan State, less than a point per possession. Against North Carolina, they scored 78 and 73 possessions. Against Notre Dame, only 65 points in 70 possessions. Then against Belmont, which is not a good defensive team, they only managed 72 in 74 possessions. So they've not been able to. And what that tells me is against teams that match up with them athletically, they haven't been good enough on offense. And they've got another one here against Cincinnati. Cincinnati prides itself on defense. They're going to match up athletically with UCLA. So I think it's going to be tough for UCLA to score in this game. And UCLA is going to do their best to get in transition and get some easy ones. But that's one thing that Cincinnati usually does not allow is easy transition buckets. If you look at their defensive numbers under Mick Cronin, every year, same thing. They're in the top 10, top 15 nationally defensively. Cincinnati at times can be offensively challenged, and I think so far this year that's been the case. I don't think Cincinnati has as much offensive talent this year as they did last year. The Cumberland has been solid, but other than that, they really don't have a guy that could play at the next level on offense. So, Cincinnati's going to try to make this a low-scoring game. They were able to do it against Xavier in their last home game, 62-47 in that one. Xavier's not as fast-paced as UCLA, but still, Cincinnati's going to. That just shows you what Cincinnati's trying to do, and that's win games in the 60s. I think if you bet it, you play the under here. The number, though, Cincinnati 8.5 or 9 might be a little bit high. We'll see if UCLA can defend a little bit to keep it under that number, and I would lean that they would. Cincinnati, for the most part, has played a weak schedule. Their best win came against Ole Miss or Xavier, and we saw Xavier last night look terrible against Missouri. So, even that win doesn't look as good as a normal win over Xavier would.
Guys, we get the coupon code CBB500 at checkout. You can get Brent or any handicappers rest of season college basketball for under $500. Get to you for $4.99. That will get you all the way through the Final Four national championship game. No extra charges later. Brent's hit 60% last year, up 25 units, and that's on a 1 and 2 unit scale, so making a lot of money for the clients last year, and looks to do it again this year. Coupon code CBB500 at checkout will save you $300 off of the posted price for the rest of his college basketball season. Coupon code CBB500 at checkout at sportsmemo.com. Let's talk another game here, Brent. 7-3-3-7-3-4 on the Sportsmemo odds screen. Western Kentucky at Belmont. This one you can stream on the ESPN network. It's not going to be on national TV, though. 160.5 the total, so these two teams should get up and down, Brent. Looks like 7.5 or 8. That's what Belmont is laying at home. How do you look to bet this one?
Yeah, Belmont definitely is going to get up and down the court. They're a team I love to watch play. Their offense is free-flowing. They shoot a lot of threes, and they're usually a very good shooting team. Rick Bird does a tremendous job. What has he been there, like 30 years now? I mean, it's ridiculous. Right now, they're 11th in the country in pace. Their offense has been pretty efficient. They're 46th in offensive efficiency. They haven't really played a great schedule. They've played UCLA, as I mentioned, in their last game. They had a road win against UCLA, by far and away their best win of the season. Their only loss came on the road against Green Bay. And, Western Kentucky's a quality club. Charles Bassey inside is a stud. I mean, they've been up and down, though. I mean, they had the road win against Arkansas, followed that up with a home loss to Troy. They had a neutral court win over West Virginia, but they've also lost on the road to Indiana State and Missouri State. So, 5-5 for the season, and just really up and down. But I think they've got a shot here against Belmont. Belmont's laying, it's up to 8 now. I definitely would take the points here with Western, and especially considering Western off the loss to Troy and Belmont off a road win over UCLA. I don't think it gets much better as far as the spot goes than Belmont. And it's not a long trip from Bowling Green to Nashville. There's not going to be any travel involved. But West Kentucky's got some talent. Deshaun Murray played at Auburn last year. Bassey's going to be in the NBA one day. This is a team that, like I said, they've got some talent. They also got one of a guy that they're really counting on, Lamonte Bearden, who had played at Buffalo for a couple of years, transferred to Western Kentucky, played last year, had to sit out, I forget however many, I guess 9 games this year. He played his first time out. Last time against Troy, played 26 minutes, scored 12 points. He's a guy that's going to make a difference for Western Kentucky. So right now, this time of year, this is after the first semester, there are a lot of teams that get transfers or guys that were suspended for the first semester for whatever reason. They're all coming back. That's one thing important to know. And Bearden is one of the top guys that is now eligible that missed some games. So, I'm not sure that's factored into this number. And like I said, the main thing here, Belmont likes to score. They don't. They're not that great defensively, so it's hard for me to lay a lot of points with them against a quality team. And I think, like I said, West Kentucky at 5-5, up and down, but they're going to get better. And
Brent, that's an interesting tidbit you say. The guys can come back if they were suspended for the first semester due to transfer, due to academics. So that schools go out for, I guess, the holidays and then start the next semester after the New Year, I'm guessing, or at least after Christmas.
I think it's as soon as the first semester ends. So, you don't have to wait till January for school to start. It's just as soon as that first semester ends, whether it be, for most of them, it's somewhere around the 10th, 15th of December. Okay,
so pretty much all of that, those players can now play.
Right.
Okay, and what are the numbers of those players? Would it be like, a 300 guys, or is this like 5 or 10 guys?
You're going to have, I know it's hard, of course, right offhand to give you a list, but guys like Bearden, there's probably 20, 25 guys that are going to make a difference. I think, there's also Cal Santa Barbara had a guy that was injured. He played his first game last week against Rice. Wasn't a suspension, but you got to be aware of guys that are coming back right now. A lot of times you kind of get used to, you're looking at teams and used to their lineups, and then you don't realize it. And like I said, Bearden is a guy that is going to make a difference. And there are, like I said, there's 15 or 20 of them throughout the country.
Okay, 15 or 20 that are going to matter. And Brent, that's finding change. And in my opinion, you've been doing it longer than me as far as sports betting. In my opinion, it's the best way to win, especially in college basketball with so much on the odds makers' plates. Stuff like this, in my opinion, I'm wrong sometimes, or hopefully not more than I'm right. But anyway, I think it slips the odds makers slips through their fingers sometimes, and you can get some value here. Do you agree?
I do, and it's all relative to who the player is, what team, and what role. You're not gonna, for the most part, you're not talking about the top, teams in the country. I mean, every now and then somebody will have a transfer that's in the top 25 already, but you're mainly looking at teams in the next level or the level below that where those guys really make a difference. If you add a guy like Bearden to Kentucky, he's not really going to matter, but you add him to Western Kentucky, he really matters.
Interesting. Good stuff there, Brent. Anything else you want to throw out college basketball betting wise before we shut this down?
That's it.
All right, man. What do you got on the docket today and tomorrow? Where are you watching the games at?
We're just going to be watching all the computers and TV screens I got at home.
Staying close to the TV screens, the monitors, the betting markets, the odds screen. That's a good handicapper right there in Brent Crow. Thanks for the time, Brent. He's got his 4% CBB best bet up at sportsmemo.com right now. And guys, remember that coupon code CBB500. You can get the rest of his college basketball season for just $500. That gets you all the way through the Final Four. Great college basketball handicapper there. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets, and we will be right back with a soccer podcast with Nick Barrowman.